Tom, just, if, Ellen, just fine, just tell him he has 5 minutes.
He's there now. Is
that you?
Unjoin it. And then rejoin it with no audio at all. There is no other way.
I think that I didn't have to enter it, I just had to turn off the audio.
No, you have to, no audio, because otherwise it hears the receiving.
I'm sure.
You do. You have a choice.
I think I'm not, I have no audio because it says join audio.
Yeah, good, there you go. And you just skip it when you join.
I don't know, for some reason mine's coming in automatically and joining audio, and I don't know why.
Because you have it set up to do so, and that's okay. Just undo it.
Hi,
Howdy.
how are you?
It's been a long day already, but I'm here.
I know.
I still have another meeting after this.
We'll try to make it quick tonight, right?
Yeah. All right, so we are gonna start this meeting. And, do you have a roll call, Jody?
Oh. Yeah, sure. Tom?
Yes.
Brent? Yep. Roy?
Yep.
Cody?
Jeremy's
And Jeremy is online.
Online.
Absent, because she's on vacation. And Dave? Perfect.
Did we have minutes we needed to look at?
We didn't have a quorum last time, so I can write up minutes really quick, but basically all we did was discuss the budget.
But did we approve the minutes of the meeting before that?
Those were, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or we did, I guess.
Okay, that's,
They were Joy's, yeah.
okay,
So,
that's fine. That's not a
That was
problem.
the July meeting, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Alan, you online there?
Yes, hi.
Hi, you were first on our agenda here, and we got about 5 minutes or so for you, so go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. I'll probably take way less than that. I really just wanted to say thank you to the Resort Tax Committee for voting in favor of recommending those sustainability related issues at the last meeting out at the EV charging station. I think it's going to be a beautiful thing when it comes together. We're making progress. Specifically, we have drafts for the city council resolutions approving the application for the solar grants, and we have drafts of the actual applications themselves. And thank you very much for that. And I just wanted to say, an idea came across my mind the other day. I know that the Resort Tax Committee is looking for highly visible projects, and I've gotten to know one person at the Arts Guild, and it crossed my mind that if the Resort Tax Committee wanted to solicit a request from the Arts Guild regarding something like a public art installation, then that might be an idea that could be passed on to the Arts Guild. I'd be happy to do that if that was something that the Resort Tax Committee was in favor of. That was really it, just an idea that passed that wanted to submit to you guys to consider.
All right, I think there would have to be a lot more information on that to even think about it. So, but, it's definitely not outside of our wheelhouse. It probably honestly would need to go through the Parks Board first in terms of where it was going to go and what it would want to look like before we'd even probably look at it, I would say.
Sure, yeah, great, all right. Maybe something to consider moving forward.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, guys.
All right. 5-year review of resort tax ordinance.
Yes. So apparently we didn't pass this ordinance until September of 2021. Is that right? Because they voted on it on June 2nd of 2020. Does that have the wrong date on it?
No, because it took a long time before the ordinance was adopted.
Is it?
I do remember that.
Okay.
And then I think maybe there was a minor adjustment to the ordinance not that long after.
Oh, okay.
So the 5-year, the short version is that the 5-year is not up yet.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking when I saw the June 2020 on here, that we would have to start working on it by
Yeah.
June of 2025, which is this next June.
Yeah,
But,
but what's the date on it?
well, this is amended, 952 first amended. So did we rewrite a whole ordinance with the renewal, and this is just an amendment that was done on October 21st?
It's October 21st of
21, and I
So-
just can't imagine we waited over a whole year.
No, there was some
Yeah.
amendment to it, I don't remember exactly what it
Yeah.
was. But I would say the 5-year review, because that's in state law, isn't it?
Yeah, that we have to do it every 5 years. We have to review the ordinance, what we're taxing, or,
But that's a review of the ordinance, correct?
correct, yeah. Every 20 years we have to, or 25 years, we have to re-vote on it, but I'm hoping that I will not be on city council in 20
Right,
years.
in my opinion, it would probably, I'm not reading the law, it would probably be based upon the adoption date.
Yeah, that's what I think too, yeah. I'm just wondering if the review is in the ordinance or if it's, no. What I would say is we should probably read the law, see what the law says,
Okay,
and then we should, look at, if it's a 5-year review of the ordinance, then it would be based on the ordinance date.
right,
If it's 5 years after adoption, then that's gonna be a different date. You looking that up right now?
I was Googling it on my phone to see if it popped up, we'll see.
Yeah.
Dave, can you find on there anywhere where the first 952 was adopted? Because if this is just an amendment of something that we actually did in 2020,
But then that would still be when it was readopted, so then the review would be 5 years after the amendment. 'cause
right,
that
which would be next, this coming year.
No, it'd be 5 years after the amendment was adopted, because that would be,
Oh.
the amended ordinance is a new ordinance.
Okay,
So,
What's the number on it, Joan?
952,
so really, we'd have to go back to the law.
okay.
So let's do that. Regardless, we have a little bit of time,
We do,
although
yeah.
it seems like time flies by for us. So, but let's do that. Let's do a review of that, look at the law, see what the law says, and then we can go from there.
Because there were some things we wanted to, tackle, I guess, sooner rather than later, and that was,
There's nothing that says you can't review it earlier.
Right, yeah, it was the, right now we just have tickets for nonprofit events are excluded from resort tax, and we talked about any event that a nonprofit has, and they sell something that we could discuss whether or not it's taxable or not, like the, St. Agnes having their bake sale, or, technically the Elks, if they're having a, pancake breakfast and selling things or burgers and stuff, they should be collecting resort tax, even, but it's an event for a nonprofit.
Yeah.
So, because I think our intent correct me if I'm wrong, but I think our intent on that was if a nonprofit,
If it's fundraising for the
Big nonprofit.
nonprofit, then,
or for another entity that we really didn't necessarily
Yes.
want it taxed.
Yeah.
And it is not that way, right?
unless it's something where they're essentially acting like a business.
Correct, like the bar.
Like the bar, if the Elks
Yeah.
rent to a wedding, and then they have to charge a resort tax on their
Correct,
fee to rent for the wedding, and they have to charge a resort tax on any of the food and any of the, so that, just being clear about that.
so the duration of it was 25 years from its effective date, July 9th.
You know, that actually makes me think about something that we probably need to be clear with too, because I have seen this piece of like personal chefs advertising, and that would be the same kind of thing. So if
Yeah.
you came in did a dinner in someone's house,
Right.
that would require, you would need to collect resort tax on that.
If
Or-
the house is within city limits or?
Within
Okay.
city limits, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If it's outside city limits, it's not our,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not our,
Yeah.
that's a different deal altogether.
Yeah.
I would say if we think it's reasonable, we could, regardless, we could plan to do a review of the ordinance and where it sits and the resort tax and the items. I mean, it's not gonna hurt us to do it at that 5-year mark of the adoption
Right,
in June. Why don't we just do that?
okay.
And then that gives us a little time to work on it, it gives us a little time to look at it, and, we can also, you know, then engage in some of the things that have come up, with some administrative stuff, and if there should be other uses of the resort tax.
Yeah.
Okay,
Can I jump in real fast?
yes, absolutely.
So I don't think the 5 years is actually in the law. I think it's just self-referential in our ordinance. And it does specifically say 5 years from the date it was voted on. That's on page 8. So
Yes,
that
I just
was
found that.
5 years.
Yep.
Yeah, 5 years from June 9th, 2020. So it would be June 9th, 2025 if we want to stick with our ordinance.
Resort tax. Yeah.
What section is that in?
That's
PDAC
under
Board.
the Resort Tax Committee.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and it does say minimum, so we can always review
Yeah.
it more, but no one really necessarily wants to do it more than that.
Okay. All right, well, that answers that question. Thank you very much. That's very helpful. So I would say we need to complete this prior to June 9th.
And that would be good too, because, I mean, they're just looking at.
And it's saying the committee shall make recommendations regarding the administrative ordinance at minimum of once every 5 years from the onset of original passage of the ordinance. Okay, so, all right.
And I mean, and part of that, when we did this last year, I mean, not last year, but 5 years ago, we also were trying to get it renewed as well, but, you know, it might be a good idea, to review what our duties are too at the same time.
Yeah.
And
That's what the amendment was.
Yes,
It was the Resort Tax Committee.
yep.
Now that you say that, that's what I remember. It was what the Resort Tax Committee looked like. That was not in the original ordinance. Okay. Any other questions on the 5-year review? Does anybody have anything they want to make sure we highlight in the 5-year review?
Just the nonprofit,
Yeah.
event.
I thought there was something else we talked about last time, but I can't remember what it was, or 2 times ago. So let's make a commitment, because, again, these things, just to have everybody over the next, and maybe we could send out and I could do this probably, send out a Google document that has the ordinance that we can use as a collaborative piece. So if you've got a change, then you can, you know, get it in there at like 5:15 before our next meeting.
Okay,
At the latest.
okay.
Any other thoughts or comments there?
No, I think that's great. I'll put you down, Tom, we'll send out. And then, just, Mayor, did you want to talk a little bit about, what we've talked about in council, the budget and the,
I think where you're going, so I don't know that it applies to the, directly with the ordinance, because the ordinance is something that would, A, you're revisiting, or B, it would be updated after the voters have changed it.
okay,
But there's just a question from a budget standpoint, that, pretty much right now, all of our property tax is going to safety, be it fire or police. That's the lion's share of that. And so I think there's a feel pretty generally, but we've got to be able to tell the story that says there's basically three different options to prevent the city from becoming in financial straits in the future. The three options that are open to the voters are raise property taxes, annex into the fire district, which would mean that we're no longer paying that out of general, which equals raise property taxes. It's just a
And
different
that's the
flavor of that.
petition of the property owners,
Yeah,
not the voter.
petition.
Okay.
Yeah, but still, that's the voters who make that decision.
No, it's
No,
not.
it's the
Well,
The
property
property owners.
Okay.
I hate to say that,
That-
but it could be a very,
It's
in this
specific to
community, it could be a
ours, it's not
very
that.
big, different group of people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then the third one is to have a change to the resort tax that says the resort tax can be used for public safety, fire / police. Those are all options that are open to the public, not things that council can do. And that'll encompass all those variations. Or the alternative is from a administration and council standpoint, what we can do is cut services because we do have to balance the budget. So it's
So the one,
having that story.
the one comment I would have on this, and I think it is something that maybe, you know, would have to do some research on in the community, is when we did this renewal,
Mhm.
there was a pretty strong feeling, and, you know, I mean, there was a variety of feelings, and some from weak to strong. There was a pretty strong feeling that folks did not, they wanted to see progress made with the resort tax, not a reduction in property taxes. And so, now, while I will take that there's a difference between not reducing property taxes and not increasing property taxes is a different thing. The second piece is when questions about using the resort tax for things like other administrative pieces, like law enforcement or fire or city hall, there was pretty much a resounding no. There was, hey, yes, we think we can buy capital improvements for parks. We should be able to maintain the capital improvements. And there was a piece that we can buy capital improvements for streets and snow plows, and that to use some of the money to make sure that we can plow the streets made sense. But folks so there would definitely need to be some thought put into this, and I think the question is, I mean, you ask a very good question, and maybe it is, would you rather see property taxes go up or have less resort tax available for capital improvements?
And I think I think a large part of that sentiment last time was actually towards staff. But when they say staff, I think they were, no, we don't want to use it to pay downtown City Hall. They didn't there wasn't an equate to this is fire, this is police.
Unfortunately, there was and this can be a moment in time, but there was very adamant that they did not want resort tax going to law enforcement.
Okay. And
That is
so,
one-
but then.
What's that, Jeremy?
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to confirm that that's my recollection as well.
So then the next question, which was not the question asked last time, would you rather, A, pay more property taxes, B, permit resort tax to go, or C, cut services, right? So it is one of those.
Yeah, it was kind of asked. I mean, just
Okay.
truthfully, because we really talked a lot about the reduction in property taxes, which is, it's a very specific ask.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know if someone else has a different recollection, but there was a pretty specific ask about that, and the community generally said no. They wanted things like a pool.
Yeah.
And they wanted to see the resort tax not get spent on water and sewer and things that they wanted to see it improve the community. That was a big piece of what we heard, was they wanted to see improvements that were visible to the community in terms of amenities.
Well, and,
Go
oh,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, as a voter, I would be, you know, again, we have a resort tax for those reasons where other communities don't, and then they take, the services should be coming out of the other taxable things, like property taxes, things like that. And, I mean, honestly, as a voter too, I would say that there's probably a fourth choice, is where in the budget is there opportunity to, I mean, you say cut services, but we're in a period of like huge technology transformation. And if there's, I mean, where can we be saving? Can we be saving money somewhere rather than just saying, I mean, and that's a city council thing to decide, but I just think saying that those are your only options seems a little short-sighted.
Well, cut services includes, spend less is
Yeah.
what, and that's the only, and so here's the good news. I have thoughts from an individual voter perspective, but from an administration standpoint, I don't have an opinion. I just know what the parameters are, and whatever the public goes. What I do know is, like I said, 3 of those options are up to the public to make the decision. The 4th one is we spend less or cut services, but that's the very, very, very large, for most of the staff in this office is tied to utility billing or tied to the, there's.
So I'm just gonna move us on from this specific
Absolutely.
topic unless somebody else has a
Yeah, I guess
comment.
I just want to understand what the story is that you're describing for this first time I've heard. So you're saying, when you say property taxes, you're saying like any type of property tax or like a specific property tax?
So we have, the property tax, what we get goes up by 1/2 the rate of inflation over the last
But
3 years.
you're
plus
just talking
we
about
go.
the general mill.
Yeah,
the general
so
tax- the general tax
in
is
order
the
to
general
raise
tax,
taxes, the voters have to vote to raise taxes on themselves.
Right, but that you're, like, the umbrella is street maintenance districts, is other taxes that you're talking about, or are you just talking about the general mill?
I was talking about property taxes. To your point,
Right,
there is an option where the,
public safety.
the
for example.
council
Yeah.
can in fact put in districts without going to the voter. I will offer that my 2 cents if you're raising taxes, the appropriate answer is ask the voters, and if the voters tell you no, you don't then say, well, we'll do it via another mechanism. You listen to what they said. And that may mean that there's a pain point before they say, wait, we changed our mind and we want to come back and do it differently.
I think Brent's bringing up a good point, which
Yeah.
is to say that you move money from resort tax to general operating fund, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, now we don't have enough resort tax to do a sidewalk improvement project, and so now we're gonna have to do a special improvement district to do sidewalk improvements. You're basically, it's just a cup shuffling game that you've just pretended you're not doing it, and you just moved it from one thing to the other and done exactly the same thing.
Well, and I think, the way that
And maybe I'll just give an example.
Okay.
Let's say we took the $250,000 that we spend on water and sewer
Mhm.
and moved it from water and sewer into public safety.
Okay.
All right? Would you then have to go raise water and sewer rates to cover that?
Oh, I got what you're saying there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you took it from one of those places, yes, you would, every dollar can only be spent once, that's the rules.
So the question when we have this conversation is, what will we not be doing
Absolutely, yeah.
as a result of this?
Oh,
Right.
that needs to be part of what, all of the places.
So like, do we not get the next project, like, let's say, if we did this, we wouldn't get a vac truck, right?
You'd
And
have
if we
to
didn't
find-
get the vac truck, do you still need a vac truck? If you still need a vac truck,
Right, and that
how
was
are
my
you gonna
point.
pay for the vac
And
truck?
that was my point. I guess I understand, Dave, where you're coming from a policy standpoint, which is the public needs to tell us whether or not they want to spend more money or have us reduce the budget. I get that, but I also unfortunately don't believe that the public always understands the choices, that simple choice and how that's going to impact their services over a 5 to 10 year period. So if your point is, okay, everything has to break, we're gonna manage it to fail, it's gonna break before the public's gonna say, we wanna pay for more services, that's one way of leading. I guess I would argue that I think in why I joined this board specifically is because I believe that this tax that we have is a privilege for our community to allow us to do things that other communities can't by the nature of what kind of community we are. And I believe that in this community, we should have better than average services, period, because we're a resort community.
Mhm.
And if we're not striving for that as a goal as leaders, then, to be honest, there's just no point for me to be here. Like, if the policy position coming from the council and the mayor are, you know, to have that be as a position that you put forward, I honestly think in general, right now, we're in a political environment where the public probably is gonna say they don't want raised taxes because we've just gone through a huge property tax increase, and you can blame the governor, you can blame counties, you can blame whoever you wanna blame. But the state, we're in a position right now where taxes have gone up, but that hasn't necessarily had a direct impact on you operating the city in a better fashion. It hasn't benefited you, right? As a mayor.
It's actually been a negative impact.
Right, and so as leaders, if we now ask the public in a moment where the public is taxed because of this property tax increase we've all gone through, they're gonna say no. And so.
Yeah.
Well, we all,
that's the
and we,
answer
and I
we
think
get.
what, I think you, Brett, I think you actually focused this issue very well. And I wasn't necessarily thinking about it the way you kind of have brought it to light, and I think it really is a good piece to bring up. Can you turn on screen sharing for me? Because we went through and did a budget,
Mhm.
right? And I think this is a really good opportunity to say that, let's say you're gonna say, if we made this change, you would move $200,000 to operational expenses, right? So,
For public safety. I mean, it would have to be, it couldn't just be.
yeah, but let's say that,
So you
okay,
you have-
hold
you
on
have
just
the-
1 second, and let me just bring this up, and
Since the voters have to change it, you can have them change it to whatever you want.
it says it's sharing, but it doesn't look like it's sharing.
I'm not seeing it.
Let's try and stop it, and then start it again.
But you have to pick what you're gonna share.
Stop broadcast, I did. Start broadcast. 1. There we go. Okay. So I bring this up just in, here is where we're spending money right now, okay? So if you were to look at this and say, what would we cut out of this? Because that's what, and actually I'm gonna go back to something else, because I think this is maybe even better. I'm gonna, oh, don't do that. Here's, what we've been spending money on. So, these are the big categories: tax relief, water, sewer, stormwater, streets, street improvements, pool, parks, law enforcement, nothing on fire and EMS, some admin. Where would we take this? Here's what we spent in this previous budget year. Where would we take that out of, right? What would we take that money from and not replace it ever, right? Ever. Because it's not just where would we take that money now. So regardless, you set us up for something, which is, it's about whether we do this or cut services, but what you're suggesting is a cut to services.
Absolutely, yes,
So
it's
you
different services.
you can't continue to spend more money on these other things and not cut services. So for example, if we take it out of water and sewer, right, and you cut that by $250,000, and you free up $250,000 in resort tax to spend operationally on emergency services,
You're making decisions for all of the future too.
you are making decisions all of the future, and we have to be very clear about that now we are not going to have as much money to put into water and sewer infrastructure. Which that's a fine choice to make, but that's what we have to put to the voters, not the abstract of it, which is,
Right.
we're either gonna have to raise taxes or take it out of resort tax. No, it's either we're gonna have to raise taxes, or we're gonna have to cut these items that we are spending in resort tax, which may mean you may have to pay more for water and sewer. So we're pulling it from property tax owners and putting it on to water and sewer users, which,
Well, and what's line 7, the 457,000,
storm sewer,
storm sewer, okay.
so you can't take that one.
So that was included, so you've got the whole 4%.
Yes, because I think it's really important when we're looking at
Okay,
this graph,
right,
that we understand that, you know, we've spent $2.5 million on water and sewer out of
Right.
resort tax, because, you know, sometimes we think of only the 3%, but the consumer thinks of
the 4%.
4% when they,
Yeah.
it's 4%, and so that's money going to water and sewer infrastructure.
What is your green?
That is storm sewer.
Okay.
Speaking of storm sewer, sorry, do we know anything about the big grant we've applied for, or like the?
You're gonna have to be more specific.
There's like a $3 million stormwater,
That's-
the next one.
It's actually for, are you talking about the road-related one?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so unofficially, we've heard we've gotten it. We have not received,
Do you know when the date is of when you're supposed to receive? You don't know?
no. But that's a next year's project if it's coming through. They're just backed up.
Gotcha.
So.
Jeremy,
but
just 'cause you're-
Unofficially, it was ours, so.
Jeremy, just because you're not here, and we'll always value your opinion, just wanted to see if you got a comment on this, in case you couldn't
Yeah,
get a
thank-
word in edgewise.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate both your and Brent's comments there. I think you guys are on point. I did want to just mention one historical fact that, you know, less than 5 years ago, the voters did approve as part of the renewal to reduce that property tax reduction from 25% to 5%. So I think that really, you know, kind of speaks to the concept that, you know, property tax relief by spending resort tax money is not really something, you know, that the voters have been clamoring for. So otherwise, I appreciate, yeah, everything you guys have said. I think it's a good point. You can't squeeze one end of the balloon and expect, you know, expect to get more water out, right?
No, the only way you can get more is if our resort tax goes up.
Yeah, so, I mean, so there's a really good conversation too, right?
I know.
Do you have any comments?
No,
Let's add-
no.
And you can't, sorry, you can't get resort tax to go up if your city services suck.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
exactly correct, right? Like, it's an investment, you know, it's a business investment, right? You know, and I'll just put in the plug here for a second, that we're in the process of doing a downtown plan. And,
Thursday, be there.
and the downtown plan could include improvements to our downtown that would help increase our resort tax, which would then help to, improve some of this, the revenues here. Just a quick, just to show this graph and the summary here, but this is where we have been spending our resort tax money since the renewal.
Right.
So, 11% went to tax relief. So you ask, why is that not 5%? It's because of, we had an you know, a budgeting error that resulted in extra return. 50% is going to water and sewer still. And one of the thing, now part of that is, a big portion of that is storm sewer, and that 1% going to storm sewer. So really, really big inputs into water and sewer. Plowing and streets, and a lot of that was capital, although some of it is operational, of 13%. Parks and pool is 19%. And then law enforcement, in terms of mostly buying new cars, it's been a little less than 5%, and then admin 1.35%. So $5 million since we made this change.
What is the admin?
What's that, the admin is the, vacation rental software.
That's the software.
Yeah. don't know how else to classify that.
It's a capital expense, but it is. for
Not a capital
administrative
expense
purposes.
because it's a software as a service. So it's not a software purchase, it's software as a service, so it can't be a capital expense. That's that, and then I just,
Can you go back to that just a little? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was looking at the number because,
there's some minor other things that got put in admin, and I could show you. Some of it is, there's a little bit of money in PERS, and
because that's only 13,000.
I don't know what, I do not remember in 2021 what the $25,000 that went to admin was. It might have been that, I think that software may have been more expensive initially, and then, because they had to do a setup or something.
Oh, that could be.
But I don't remember,
Yeah.
We have, can ask Lonnie for those numbers again. I actually looked at those 2021 numbers, and I have not gone back and through them, but I can do that. So this is kind of where we're headed now. You know, note that when we're thinking about budgets, we're definitely not thinking that a full quarter of our money goes to water and sewer before we even touch it.
Now, this,
That's storm sewer, but
right, but that's not everything we've spent, is it?
yes,
But see,
But
what-
that's for 4 years then total?
yes,
Okay, so, but, well, I guess we also have $800 and some thousand
in cash left, yes.
Because I was like, it just wasn't adding up in my head, so.
that water and sewer is, what we're doing is we're not offsetting property taxes, we're offsetting an increase in,
Utility.
Water,
Utility
utilities,
bills.
bills. And it's important to think about that in
There's
a
whole
sense.
philosophy about who are you impacting.
Yes, there's a whole philosophy about who of you're impacting, because the person who has a large house on the golf course, who shows up and comes for 3 weeks a year, pays less probably in water and sewer than the family of 4 who live in a 2-bedroom house on Hagen, right? So when you move from property tax to water and sewer, right, you are impacting,
You're disproportionately.
you're disproportionately impacting, and that may be, some people may say that's good, or some people may say it's bad. I'm not gonna comment on whether it's good or bad. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
That
If you go over your minimum, because.
you're gonna pay more.
What he's saying is there's a difference between taxing based on the property value and how that's going to shake out
Right, no, I understand, yeah.
versus based on the services for everyday living and how that's going to shake out.
We all-
Are you subsidizing the millionaire who's here 3 weeks a year?
Yes, we also disproportionately charge multifamily housing more for water and sewer than single-family housing. So, we do, because based on gallons they use,
Oh, yeah,
the gallons get more expensive,
the size of the pipe coming in.
the size of the pipe and the more gallons you use. So when you take a shower and you live in an apartment building or in subsidized, in housing, you pay more per gallon than the person who lives.
I've never gotten anybody to explain to me why a gallon is not a gallon is not a gallon. I've pursued that.
Brett would be the only person who might be able to explain that.
Yeah, I'd have to have engineers explain to me.
Okay, I will give you my explanation. It is designed to be punitive
To drawing higher capacity.
to draw in more water. So if everybody lives in a single-family house, right, and I use 3,000 gallons a month, and Brent wants to water his lawn, and he's using 10,000 gallons a month, I want to punish him by charging more for the second 3,000 than he paid for the first 3,000, to encourage him to use less water.
But what actually dictates that is he put in a 3/4 inch pipe and Brent put in a 1 inch pipe.
No, that has nothing to do with pipe size. It's all about gallons used. There is also a penalty for putting in a larger pipe size.
I was talking about the pipe size.
Yes, but so both those penalties exist. The penalty for a larger pipe size exists, and a penalty for using more water.
Do you have, separate meters in each multifamily unit, or do they?
Generally not.
well, then that would be it, because you're always gonna go over those 3,000 gallons,
So,
and
so
the next 3,000 are gonna be
it's
more
more
expensive.
expensive, so that person is paying more
Right.
to take their shower.
So if you have a 4-unit building,
You
you're
pay,
gonna be, and you're
your water is,
using 12,000 gallons, you're gonna have a huge bill.
your water is way more expensive, even though everybody individual is only using 3,000 gallons.
Right.
Everybody in that house is paying more for their water than the person across the street per gallon.
Yeah, the average price per gallon goes up.
Yes, that's correct. So it's a policy decision that the council made at some point.
No,
They
the
thought that
only
was-
other thing you could do would be meter each unit.
Well, but that, I mean, again, this is not a problem we're supposed to solve.
No.
Yeah, that type of policy though is prohibitive, especially in an environment where we have housing issues.
Yeah.
You know, if we wanted a developer to come in here and build a multifamily unit, and that's the cost that it's gonna hit the developer, you know, so that's something that the council needs to, as a council problem,
Yeah,
but.
definitely a council problem.
prohibitive to
But,
develop.
and it only impacts us in terms of coming back to what the mayor was suggesting, right? Which is how we move money around and who pays for the services, right? Because unless you are proposing to reduce services, all that we're really doing is trying to figure out how to change who pays for them and in what method.
No, I think there's some services, and specifically the one that we have control over is police.
In terms of either doing
We
it
go
or.
from 7 officers to 4.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
whatever, so.
So I'm gonna try and focus us back on resort tax, because I have another meeting after this. And just to talk to the group, but to make a request of something that we've talked about but has never really happened, which is, we have put a lot of money into parks and streets operation and maintenance, and what I would like to see is a presentation from the folks who are in charge of that about exactly where that money was spent and what was accomplished with it. And I would like something that we could then we could take elements of and move to a public presentation should we need it. And it would be great to have that every year, you know, so that full-time position, what projects were accomplished, what work did they do, what things have we bought, you know, so that we can begin to establish the benefit of where that's going and the justification for it.
Yeah, I know Courtney did something similar like that for the whole parks board and the parks itself, but I don't think it's ever been done on the public works side for the streets and things.
And I don't think we ever got that
And it's
presentation.
basically just building the case for our renewal in 15 years when we go to the voters to renew it.
But it's also giving the case for us when you say, hey, we want to continue to fund a full-time position. Well, what's that position doing? Or, you know, we want to buy another plow truck. Well, what's the last plow truck's been doing? You know what I mean? It's
Right.
You know, and I really like what Brent said, is that, you know, part of this, the design of this resort tax is to make it so that we can be a little bit more, right? And so what is this more that we're being as a result of the resort tax? How are we, I mean, and we know part of that, right?
Right.
We probably would not have a pool if it was not for this resort tax.
No. we
And
would've
that is a great thing, and all you have to do is drive by there on a Saturday in the summer, and you are, you know, clearly convinced that that's an amenity that we have, and it is nice. But I think it also goes to, again, thinking about our future and what our future amenities are.
And I do agree with that. I just feel that some of our biggest impacted service is our public safety by tourism, by the number of visitors that we have. I mean, whether it's winter or summer, you know, when we have a mass number of people here, you know, it's our police department, it's our fire department that.
Only
Now we're back
4%
to
of our
that
budget is,
decision.
so I mean, as far as like getting a report from, like, if you look at the percentage of spend, from a resort tax standpoint, I agree, like, getting a proposal, if that much money is going to parks, I mean, it's a bigger percentage than what's going to law enforcement. Not saying that the law
Right.
enforcement piece isn't important to telling the story, but,
No, I'm
Yeah.
just saying, if we do decide we want to ask the the public, you know, how, if they want to change that, how it's spent. You know, I think that's the case, that we, you know, to keep people safe with the number of visitors that we have, you know, we do need I feel we need 24/7 coverage. You know, living this close to Billings is a good reason why we need 24/7 coverage. And we're required by law to pay for fire protection.
But, so, this is a really good question for you. Would we not need 24/7 coverage if we were in a resort community?
Well, and that's the conversation you have to have. And there's gonna be people that say, I don't wanna be a resort community. I'm like, well, then you're not gonna have parks.
Well, but, you know, no, I'm asking a different question.
Okay.
The question is, would you not need 24/7 law enforcement coverage if you were not a resort?
I think you would not need the depth of coverage if we were not a resort. So I
Right.
think Belfry does not have the resort that we have. Bear Creek does not have the coverage that we have.
Columbus does not. I don't know how many people Columbus has, you know, but that's the town that's,
They're double us, and they're closer to Billings.
yeah.
So
I don't know how many people they
the
have
thing
on.
that we're close to Billings is a factor,
Mhm.
but I think it's the fact that we're a destination is a larger driver.
But there's stuff from Billings that's filtering up through here a lot, you know, and it always has, so. But there's also the increase in domestic violence cases that they've had, and, I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's a different world than it was, you know, 30 years ago when I moved here. So, 40 years ago, 40 years ago? Oh my God, it was 40 years ago.
You also have a higher awareness of it now.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's true.
probably.
Yeah, when I was 18 years old.
I would say being involved in it is not a hugely different world.
One of the interesting things about police is the better of a job they do, the less you recognize you need them.
There's some truth to that, and, you know, I think the question for us is this piece of what's the proper use of resort tax, right? It's not
Yeah.
whether or not we need law enforcement. I'll stand up every day and say we do, right?
Right.
And I agree that we should have
And we-
24-hour, 7-day-a-week coverage in law enforcement.
And we need
But the-
top-notch fire protection.
Yes, and we need fire protection. The question is that where does that come from, right?
Mhm.
And, you know, and so that's a question for the council, and we know that the council has never asked the voters that question, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think one exercise I ask us to think about doing, I think the one that you asked, which is have the benefactors of the resort tax, if there's a staff person or a department, come here and say, hey, thank you for
Yeah.
being on this resort tax committee as volunteers, because that's what we're here for. Like,
Mhm.
thanks to these volunteers. But also, like, this is our goal to best leverage the funding that you've allocated to this thing, right?
Mhm.
And, like, before the end of the year, you know, the budget year. The other thing I think we should do, and I don't see a reason why we couldn't, is for each of the things that we provide, or that the resort tax provides funding to, say, there are other alternatives for this thing, like water. What is the other alternative for water? Predominantly rates, but also grants. And of course, the city does a good job applying for grants.
Mhm.
Sewer, obviously, rates, grants, parks. You could have a parks district. Like, there
Yeah.
are other choices
Yeah.
that we, I think, as resort, now, not as council members, but as resort tax committee,
Yeah.
I think we could identify for the council, hey, these are other, and of course, I know the council knows this, but like the public, if you, again, you're talking to the public about the resort tax, in an alternative world, if you didn't have a resort tax and you wanted the same park services, you would likely have to have a park maintenance district. And then the question is, well, do we want higher levels of service for our parks district? And if we're gonna predominantly fund the park out of the resort tax at this amount and maintain level services, the only other alternative for parks is to have a parks district. Now, again, it gets to specific services as opposed to that broad category of raising taxes. And that's where, like, when I work in communities, every community I work in that has a sales tax, and I work in Wyoming and North Dakota, they all have sales taxes, as compared to the Montana communities where I work, where they don't have sales taxes, they are able to have more intelligent conversations about specific services versus basically just getting by. Again, I think we in this community have been able to get better than just getting by because of the resort tax.
Mhm.
But I feel like this committee could do I think we do a little bit better about, in the future, about describing the resort tax does this for you, but you could also
Do it
choose
this
to
way.
have a higher level of service,
Yeah.
and then the resort tax might be able to do something. but I don't know where that is, you know? Is it-
Yeah, I like that.
Do people really value public safety? You know, it's sort of a
Yeah.
choice, but it's also.
Well, it's a priority list.
Yeah,
I mean,
obviously, the public knows they're getting a level of service for everything which is set here today, based
Mhm.
on the funding structure, related funding structure. Now, the question is, do you want better?
Mhm.
That's one question. I mean, your question was raise taxes or cut services, but I'm suggesting we could also ask the question, do you want better?
Yeah.
Raising taxes to maintain service versus cutting services is a different conversation than do you want better?
You know, go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean to clear my throat to butt in, but I did just want to share the concern that in general, I don't like the idea of tying the hands of the resort tax to a service that, in my mind, is something that all cities should provide. Part of that's just my opinion as a voter. Part of it's, kind of informed by our previous survey. But, there is a philosophical element there where, like Tom was saying, would we have a need for the police level we have anyway? Or is it integral to the status as a resort town? So those are just my thoughts.
well, and I know that, the chief has said that we've had the same number of officers on duty for, 1997? We've had 7 officers. We
Yeah, I
have
mean,
not increased it at
right.
all.
Jeremy, I philosophically agree with you 100%, and again, the simple question I'd ask and related to that, which I think is a resort tax issue, but it's like, why aren't we just doing a public safety mill levy? Like, why aren't we strongly just focused on that? Like, is there a reason why we're not choosing to do that? If everyone in this room agreed we need 24/7 police protection,
Mhm.
why aren't we biting the bullet and educating the public and doing that? Like, what's preventing us from doing
That-
that
that-
versus your goal of?
Because-
That would be another choice.
And I would
I'm
say
like, that
that,
would be
and I'm gonna be slightly critical of the council for this,
Uh-huh.
is that we've been talking around in circles on this for the last 5 years.
Right.
And we have never, why do we keep talking around in circles on this and not go out and say, we wanna do this? I mean, why does the council not do that? It's like they're always looking for the easy way
I think
to out,
it's
and I
more-
think that's wrong.
I understand what you're saying, and I take that criticism to heart. And for me, I will answer it that I see people struggling to pay their property taxes right now, and to do another, I mean, I had a horrible time when we passed, the stormwater thing. I mean, that was hard for me to vote for, and even though I knew it was a wonderful, great project and we'd get it done right away. And that's the only reason, and after the flood, I was like, yeah, we've got to get this done, we've got to get it done now.
But again,
But
the
it's
thing that I would say about doing that stormwater thing, which maybe you wouldn't have had to do if you had looked at other things, is that stormwater thing hits the little house on Hagan exactly the same as it hits the Pollard Hotel.
Okay.
And, so that, and you made a choice by doing that to say that, you're not gonna have that based on property value or even use. You're gonna have it based on unit value. And I think there's a mistake in that.
I think I really like Jeremy's thing, and I think it summarizes it, and it ties in what Brett said as well, that, the resort taxes to help us, to deal with the business of being a resort town, but to get stuff for us that we wouldn't have otherwise. And I think it's just, as we look at that picture of water and sewer and stuff, what we're doing is we've been using it to have what every town has without raising taxes to do so.
Yep.
And
We've been
without
using it
raising
as
water
a-
rates and sewer rates.
And I think we just need to be careful to not continue to do that for other things. Like, we've already made the decision for sewer and water, but we can't just keep thinking that the resort
And-
tax is gonna solve.
And I'm hopeful at some point, we're gonna look at our water and sewer system and go, man, we did everything.
No, then you get to start all over, because everything was done 20 years ago.
Yeah, but-
And we're gonna start
But
all
we
over.
were, but that stuff, I mean, truthfully, that stuff has 100-year life on it. I mean, it really does.
But the point is made by both, that the basic services that a city ought to provide, the problem we had with grants on water and sewer years ago we weren't charging enough for them.
Mhm.
And when we went to apply for grants, they said, you're not eligible for grants because you're trying to fix the problem that you're not charging an appropriate rate up front. And so if you take that same mentality and apply it to everything else,
I guess,
there's validity to it.
I guess my hope is, and I think we've heard this a little bit, is that I think we're having a conversation that I don't necessarily think the council, I think the council has to have this conversation, right? But,
And the council wants us to put it to the voters and ask them whether or not they want to use resort tax for public safety.
okay, so what I think the council has to tell us is what, they should look at last year's expenditures and tell us what they don't want to expend on that
Yes.
when they do it. I think that's a really good way to do it.
So the council wants the resort tax to bear more of the burden for law enforcement than it is currently.
And
Is that
fire,
okay?
it's fire and law, it's
I'm
both,
gonna
public
rephrase
safety.
that. The council is panicking because fire and police are eating up the entire property tax / general budget.
Right.
That's the
It's,
real.
it's almost, it's $1 million.
And the council is very well aware that we levy a tax that is far below the average of communities like ours in Montana, right?
We are, yes. We are, yes.
It varies too.
We're the lowest in Carbon County.
Montana's a lot
Yep.
bigger than Carbon County.
We're lower than Billings, we're lower than Laurel, we're lower than Bozeman.
We're twice West Yellowstone.
Well, I will just say as a member of this committee, someone pointed me to it, I mean, my position on this, a policy position, and I'm not the council, but like if I were asked, very simply, given where we are as a community today and the values that I think we've all agreed on, particularly the police value, I really think, and fire too, to some degree, and I don't understand all the fire things, but the police one seems more straightforward to me. Like, I believe that the first step we should be going through is asking the public if they want a public safety bill, plain and simple. That's trying to free up general fund by placing more of those general fund burdens on the resort tax, to me, is the wrong policy decision. And I only say that because I'm on the resort tax committee, and so, and everything's related.
I would
We've
agree,
already
because if we
established-
were in any other community that
Right.
had a problem with funding law enforcement and they didn't have the resort tax option,
That's the only thing they
what
can
else
do.
would the city be
That's the
doing?
only thing they can do.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess,
$800,000 over budget.
here's what I've heard, and I think we have, as a resort tax committee, we have an obligation to respond to this. So,
Mhm.
I am going to try and entertain a motion that says whether we think, as a resort tax committee, we should be considering trying to, eliminate this burden, or we should put it back to the council that says, and this is what I'm gonna suggest, that the resort tax committee does not believe that we should be burdening, that the resort tax does not currently have the funds to, I'm trying to think how to say
Pay
this.
for stuff that the city should be paying for from other revenues.
Sure, as the mayor explained, and maybe if we give that back to the council, the council still can come back to us and say, well, go figure it out, right? That's what we
Right,
do.
yeah.
But as a piece, and I just want to hear from each of you if we think this is the right thing to give back to the council, because I don't want to do it unless we're unanimous in this, and we can continue to have the discussion.
But we
But-
don't have to be unanimous, I mean,
No, we don't, but I would like us to have a unified front when we're gonna present
Yeah.
something to the, we should have compromise amongst ourselves.
Yeah, and I don't
And then
actually.
give a unified direction to the council.
And honestly, I don't have a vote, I'm just a council
don't?
rep, no,
Yes.
so Chris does, so you guys can like,
Yeah.
so.
Well, who wants to start?
With an opinion or a
Yeah.
vote?
An opinion.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think I've made my opinion clear. I think
Mhm.
our recommendation should be that's the wrong policy direction.
I agree.
Jeremy?
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. And if we were going to edit our vote request or proposal or request of council, it would just be, what does council think should be cut as a result? But
Yeah.
that doesn't
And I-
necessarily need to be add, but,
But
on the
I-
table-
I-
on the table, the
agree.
proposal, I would say, yeah, I would vote for that.
Yeah. So I think we're all in agreement and, that we, and then maybe we'll do it this way, and I'll put it as a piece, is that we direct Jody to present to council that the resort tax committee does not feel that funding current operational expenses of the city, that the resort tax should be modified to fund items that are not allowed, specifically city operational expenses for law enforcement and fire.
Okay, so I have Resort Tax Committee does not currently have funds to fund operational expenses of public safety.
Well, it's not allowed, just to
Right,
start
no.
with, and we don't
No.
believe we should change that.
They don't,
Right,
they
okay.
don't recommend that they should change it to offset
Okay,
what would
Let me
be
check it.
standard functions in any other city.
Yes, yep. As messy as that is, I'm gonna ask for a vote. All in favor of that, say aye.
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 Jeremy?
Okay.
Brett?
Yeah,
Yep, everybody, we got everybody on that, so I don't have to ask if there's
Okay.
anyone opposed, because
And
everyone voted for it.
I will bring that back, and I will also ask them, what, that you brought up the question, out of last year's resort tax expenditures, or this budget year's resort tax expenditures.
I would say
what
last
we
year
cut?
specifically.
Yeah, what would we?
What would they
we
have,
cut?
what would they have cut to do that?
Okay,
Because those,
And I can look at this coming year, and I can answer that question because I have an awareness, because we wouldn't be getting a back cut. We'd be paying for it with services and.
then we're just robbing Peter to pay Paul. I mean, then what you're saying is we're gonna then have to take it out of other funds, which, if you've got those other you're just it's a shuffle game of funding then. Or they're not getting the back, because if you take it from water fees, that's no different than getting rid of the
It is because you're tying the fee to the service, specific service.
I understand that, but it does mean an increase in water and sewer rates in order to do that.
you're still spending money, Greg.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah,
you're spending
you can't
it or not
spend money
spending it.
unless you have money to spend.
it would have cost us, what was it, we would have had to finance it, and it
It
would have
would cost
cost
you-
us,
yeah.
like, it was another
$100,000
$100,000 more.
Yeah, and then the voter,
That
and then
is
the public
definitely-
would have had to pay for that,
Yes,
so okay.
okay,
All right,
I will
so,
bring that back.
so we have two requests on the table going back to city. One is for the council, to our council rep, the second is to the mayor. And the one to the mayor is that we get a presentation from the department heads that are benefiting from the resort tax about how they've benefited, what the money's gone to, and I'm gonna add, what their hopes are for the future.
Is that presentation when they come here to
Yeah.
give, or is it when they do it at council, so it's a wider audience? Or do they come to you and then go to council?
I think we would love it to us.
We'd like to ask questions, probably.
Yes, yeah, it's
Yeah,
just,
then
it's
we
a
have a
different,
better-
it's a different kind
And I
of.
think we should put a timeline on that, because they did the same thing, so the city council asked the sustainability board, and they gave us a month or something, so I think whoever we're asking, whether it's Mike Maples or whoever's on the Parks Board to come in, I think we should say, okay, we want that in our November meeting
Yeah,
or whatever.
I like November.
Okay.
All right, and is this is for 23-24?
Yes,
Mike's-
and can include stuff previous to that, and it can include how they hope to spend this year's budget too, that would be helpful.
Well, and that we kind of have via the spreadsheet, though.
Well, yes, but there was, I think more what we're talking about, especially for Mike, is how the salary position is being expended and what's accomplished. It's easy to say we're gonna buy a vac truck, that takes 3 minutes, right?
Right,
He already justified that.
Yeah.
But it's different to talk about what gets if we were to cut that position, or if we weren't to get a vac truck, what would the implications be, that's what we're asking for, because that's how we justify that in our world and in next year's budget.
well, and also the whole parks piece, like, what have been the improvements, what's been done to the parks, where,
Yeah,
because there was a lot of rehab that had to be done on, especially on loose trails and the park benches, and, I mean, it just was a lot.
it's a lot of stuff, and that's,
Yeah,
And
there's
the
always-
baseball fields,
Yeah.
there's always-
what new trails have been done
There's always O and M.
that we've partnered with, things like that.
I mean, how many people showed up to the pool this year?
Yeah, oh, that was huge, that thing was,
Yeah, I mean,
as long as the boiler was
it was
working.
the best
it was
summer,
like-
it's the best summer we've had in terms of weather for the pool.
Yeah.
But that's that's a great figure to say, is that,
Boiler?
yeah, what does the boiler cost to fix?
Yeah.
We have to pay for that?
Pardon?
Part of it.
Assume- assume we have to pay for that boiler being fixed?
Yes and no, the boiler is being paid for, it's being paid from donations,
Oh, okay. But that's,
18,000.
but that's also good to know. You got a boiler for $18,000?
We got credit for the one that crapped out after 2 years. Asterisk. So we got credit off the MSRP for the one that crapped out after 2 years. Do that math.
Okay. All right.
Is there any way I misstated that, or is that a good way to phrase that?
I don't know the details of what happened, but you're probably accurate, would be my guess.
They gave us the credit, but the credit is assuming you were paying full price, which isn't what you were really gonna pay. So how much did we get?
I guess.
Okay, so we're all gonna, you're gonna send out this, and we're all gonna,
Yeah, I probably have to get it.
I have my job to go back to council and all this.
Actually, I'm gonna ask the mayor for this. Can you have Lonnie get us a editable copy of the ordinance
Yes.
that she can send to me in Word or whatever, and then I will create a Google Doc version of it and share it with everybody so we can do it. All right.
And then we're gonna get the, presentations from people, and then we'll make a public presentation that we can
Yeah.
have out on the website, or we can, whatever we decide we wanna do with it.
And since we're getting late on this, I maybe we're gonna make a suggestion, is that just a quick comment on the survey, and by next meeting, I will work with those survey questions and to build
Well, and I
build
think-
an actual survey
And
document.
I think we should probably talk about, I mean, we don't need to talk about it now, but the timing, because again, maybe it makes sense to do these presentations, get that public information
Yes.
out there, get all that stuff out there, and then do the survey,
Right,
Yeah.
you know, to think about that.
like future,
Yeah.
There's still a part of this that is, we've got to figure out how to tell/better communicate this story to the public. And that's not to assume that the entire public is going to put forth the 2 cents of energy to become educated. But our responsibility is to make sure that for anybody who does, the information is there. And that, and going back, I mean, even as we've paddled around the story tonight, that's why I don't think it's a race to get it done yesterday. It's more important that it's correct, it's accurate, and that we try to get as many nuances in it as there are.
Well, and I think that's why, I mean, that's why it's so important that the department heads come and give us the story that they see, because we don't, I mean, truthfully, if we don't know how stuff's being spent, if we don't know what improvements were done with the money that was spent last year in the parks budget, how do we expect Joe citizen or business owner who's collecting the resort tax to have an idea of how that was spent?
This will be a meeting on your agenda too, but you're gone, when are you back?
I'm gone, I'll have to look at my stuff. I think I'm gone a lot in October, but I think I'm here for the meeting. but
for
I'll
the
have to
third
go.
Tuesday.
Oh, it's only September. Okay.
Jeremy, or there's a resort, you're going to League of Cities, are you
So,
going to the resort tax meeting?
I was just gonna ask about that. So one of the issues I'm having right now is there's not a hotel, so I'm not certain how or what.
Oh, shoot, I just canceled my room today at Best Western. They got an Airbnb place, found one.
Oh, Best Western, I bet it's
Oh,
lower.
Best Western.
I am not gonna be here on the 15th,
Best Western.
Okay.
designated.
so I don't know if we
I
wanna,
can have them.
what folks would,
Everything today was sold out.
Oh.
And I was gonna do
Is
it,
that when
go into
the,
VRBO because that's what's there, but
no, I have a
I
Montana
canceled that.
Oh.
Restaurant
You know, but
Association
I don't know,
board
they
meeting
can
in
send a
Bozeman
cancellation back to me, so I can call them tomorrow and
with the
see
8th.
if they've got it. It was.
that's
it was
city
the most
council?
Oh, that's right.
What about the 7th? Or like we do the week earlier,
I can,
either
I'll
on
check on my
Wednesday or
reservation.
Monday or Wednesday.
Wednesday is planning
If you-
board,
you don't know where to go because of that, or-
well, that was gonna be that.
I could do-
If I can't get
We
them
could do
on
Monday.
I could do Monday,
the 14th or the 7th? The
the
7th?
14th, I could do Monday the 14th, or the 7th.
No, that's Columbus Day, is that a
Okay.
holiday?
Yeah, technically, but
I don't know.
We're
We
talking,
can
hey,
get
Jeremy, we're talking about moving the meeting to the 14th from the 15th, which would be a Monday night instead of a Tuesday night.
There's another meeting that meets on the third Monday too.
but
No,
they meet
that's
at
the
4.
second Monday.
No, because the Columbus
Sustainability
Day,
Board meeting meets on Monday, but they meet at 4, so we wouldn't
Okay.
conflict with them.
Okay,
Okay,
Monday the 14th,
yeah,
I'm fine with that.
all right, so Jody, you'll handle that change, okay?
and that's not on Tuesday because,
Because I'm not gonna be here,
okay. Fine, you're special.
and I am here on the 19th.
I have to put this in my calendar, or I will forget.
Although maybe.
Do you want me to call them? on
Okay.
the-
Like it's
see if they
awful.
still have
So
it?
many.
When we wrap it up, yeah. And what, I was gonna go Tuesday, so I'm there early in
All
the
right.
morning too, for the session. Were you going Tuesday?
I'm on Monday now.
Are you going to the, is it
Because
the
there's
county
already
planning
one
meeting?
Tuesday,
But what's your reservation, do you know?
It's Monday to Friday, so I'm sure there's one Tuesday to Friday. Or Tuesday.
I'm sorry, Jody, what was your question?
Are you going to the planning board meeting at 7? Is that tonight?
I need to go check and find out what the time is, and that's, I'm just Joe Citizen in that.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I'm just Joe Citizen, well, no, I'm a little more than Joe.
I would like to adjourn this meeting.
I can't second.
Second.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Thank
thank you
you.
guys.
all for a very
Can you cancel
enlightening
our-
conversation.
can you cancel our thing?
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jeremy. Oh.
I